You open your phone first thing in the morning. Bad idea. You already know it's a bad idea, but you do it anyway. And there it is. Someone you went to school with just got promoted. Someone you used to work with just bought a house. An old friend posted photos from a trip you could never afford, and someone you've never even met, some stranger on the internet, just launched their second business at 27. You put the phone down, and for a few seconds, you just stare at the ceiling. Because somewhere between all those posts and all those announcements, a quiet but crushing thought slips in. What am I doing with my life? Not loudly, not dramatically, just a low hum in the background of your day, a feeling like everyone around you is boarding a train and you're still standing on the platform looking for your ticket. This feeling has a name. Psychologists call it social comparison, but that name makes it sound small and clinical. It isn't. It gets into everything. It makes you question choices you were fine with yesterday. It turns other people's good news into evidence against you. It sits with you at dinner, on the commute, in the middle of the night when you really should be sleeping. And the worst part? It feels completely rational. It feels like you're just being honest with yourself. You're not. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why. Stay with me until the end, because the last thing I'm going to tell you is the one thing that will change how you see this feeling completely. The race nobody signed up for. Here's the first thing you need to understand. There is no race. There was never a race. But somewhere along the way, through school, through family expectations, through watching other people's lives scroll past you in real time, you absorbed a set of invisible rules. Rules about when things are supposed to happen. Career by this age, stability by that age, a certain kind of life assembled by a certain invisible deadline. Nobody handed you these rules in writing. Nobody sat you down and said, "Here's the timeline, keep up." But they're in there, and they run quietly in the background every time you look at where someone else is and then look back at yourself. Sociologists have a name for this. They call it the social clock, the unspoken cultural calendar that says you should be doing certain things at certain times. And when your life doesn't match the clock, the mind doesn't say, "Maybe the clock is wrong." It says, "Maybe I am." That's the trap. You've been measuring yourself against a schedule you never chose, a finish line someone else drew, and feeling behind on a race you never actually entered. Why everyone else looks further ahead. Now let me show you something that once you see it, you can't unsee. Think about what you actually know about your own life. You know everything. The slow weeks, the false starts, the plans that didn't work, the mornings you couldn't get moving, the years that passed without much to show for them. You have every detail, including all the messy, unglamorous parts in between the good moments. Now think about what you know about everyone else's life. You know the announcements, the highlights, the moments people choose to share because they're worth sharing. You see their promotion post. You don't see the 3 years they spent in a job they hated before that. You see the house. You don't see the debt, the stress, or what they gave up to get there. You are comparing your full unedited story, every chapter, every rough draft, against everyone else's highlight reel. That is not an honest comparison. It never was. Research actually confirms this. When we compare ourselves to people who appear to be doing better, our brain registers it as a genuine threat. Serotonin drops, anxiety rises, and the mind starts looking for an explanation. The explanation it usually lands on is this: something must be wrong with me. But that explanation is built on incomplete information. You're not seeing a fair picture. You're seeing a fraction of someone else's life and treating it like the whole story. The people who were behind and changed everything. Here's what nobody talks about. Colonel Sanders spent most of his life struggling. He tried dozens of jobs. Nothing stuck. He was 62 years old, living off a small Social Security check, when he started driving around the country trying to sell his chicken recipe. Most people said no. He kept going. KFC now operates in over 150 countries. Julia Child didn't publish her first cookbook until she was almost 50. Before that, she'd been rejected by publishers who didn't believe in her. She went on to become one of the most beloved figures in the history of food. Stan Lee was nearly 40 before he created the characters that would eventually become the Marvel Universe. These are not feel-good exceptions. These are people who simply refused to believe that their chapter was over before they'd actually written it. The world loves to celebrate people who make it young. 25-year-old founders, 30-year-old CEOs. And yes, those people are impressive, but they are not the whole story of human potential. They are one version of it, and it is a version that social media has made look like the only version. It isn't. The comparison that actually matters. Here's the shift I want you to make. Right now, you're comparing yourself horizontally. You're looking left and right at everyone around you and measuring where you are relative to them. That's the comparison that hurts. That's the one that has no end, because there will always be someone further ahead on whatever road you're looking at. There's a different comparison, a vertical one. Where are you compared to where you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? That comparison is honest, because it only involves you. It doesn't import anyone else's story. It doesn't rely on information you can't actually see. It just asks one simple question. Am I moving? Not as fast as someone else. Not towards someone else's idea of forward. Just moving, growing, doing something today that the version of you from 2 years ago couldn't do. If the answer is yes, even quietly, even slowly, you are not behind. You are in motion, and motion, even slow motion, is not the same thing as being stuck, the real thing you're actually afraid of. Here's what's underneath all of this, and I want you to sit with it for a second. The fear isn't really about being behind. The fear is that maybe time is running out, that there's a window, and it's closing. And if you don't get through it soon, you'll miss it forever. That fear is human. It makes complete sense, but it's also wrong. There is no closing window. There is no deadline on becoming who you're supposed to be. The timeline you've been running against was built by other people's assumptions, cultural habits, and a social media machine designed to make you feel inadequate, so you keep scrolling. Your life does not run on that schedule. Some of the most important things that can happen to a person happen late. Some lessons only come from the years that felt wasted. Some doors only open because of the ones that closed. The path that looks slow from the outside is sometimes doing the deepest work on the inside. So the next time you feel that quiet panic, that low hum of, am I falling behind? Try asking a different question. Not why am I so far behind everyone else, but behind on whose plan exactly? Because if the plan was never yours to begin with, then falling behind on it isn't a failure. It's freedom.